Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Connery. I'm the Director of Guidance here at Algonquin. We're going to go ahead and get started on time because I'm sure everybody has to head out to work or maybe have other plans for today. Before we get started, I'm going to turn this over to Jackie Barnes, our APTO president, so she can share a few words with you.
Good morning. I'm also a fellow sophomore parent, so I'm really excited about the presentation today. I just wanted to talk to you about a couple of things real quick. Coming up, we have a very special presentation on March 22nd, and I have a flyer for you as you walk out. I want you to keep this date in mind, because it's a very important date, a very important presentation. I don't know if any of you have heard about Kevin Brooks, but he has an amazing, amazing story. And this is very timely as we get into prom, as we get into the spring, and the junior prom, that is. So I want you to make sure to take a flyer, please. That would be great. The other thing that our group as an APTO supports, and one of the reasons that we're having Kevin speak, because he's also going to speak to the juniors and senior students, but we're inviting all parents to come. He will be talking about driving, safety, what you as parents can do to help your children stay safe. And one of the things that we provide as the APTO is a post-prom party. And right after the junior prom, the children, our students, get to come to Algonquin. They are dropped off. And they can check in, and then they will go to the New England Sports Center in Marlborough for an all-night evening of supervised, fun, substance-free activity. And it's a wonderful opportunity for safe alternatives, which is exactly what Kevin will be talking about. So those are just a couple of things that the parent organization tries to support. And we encourage you to encourage your students to help support their peers coming to the junior party. It's for the junior class, and it is going to be on May 19th after prom at midnight. And we will be asking all of you to help, because sooner or later, your students are going to be there next year. And we're looking for donations, and we're looking for your physical help and time and effort to make that evening incredible for those that attend. Last year we had about 350 people. It takes about $15,000 to run that evening. So please come to Kevin Brooks on March 22nd in the evening, the parent presentation, and please support the JPP. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jackie. On behalf of the Guidance Department, I'd like to personally thank the APTO for all the support that they provide to us throughout the year. They're a tremendous help with the college fair. So I do know that for parents who maybe have yet to join the APTO, I think your membership is greatly appreciated, and it goes to support, things such as our college fair, as well as wonderful presenters like Kevin Brooks. So thank you, Jackie, for your collaboration. We greatly appreciate your support. So today we're going to be talking about sophomores and the work that we're currently doing this week with your students in workshops, as well as the course selection process and some changes that we're going to be making to the process this year. Before we get started, though, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce you to all of the counselors, because for some of you, this may be the first time that you're actually putting a face with a name. So I think that's always great to be able to, know who your student is working with, because as your student progresses through Algonquin, 11th and 12th grade, you will work much more closely with the guidance counselors as we plan for their future beyond Algonquin. So if we'll start over here on the left, we have Dave Breglio. Next to him is Jason Lassard, Connor Brosnan, Andrea Hodgkin, Pam Mackey, Kate Mulcahy, and of course, Becca Haberman. Yes, all right. And again, I'm Lisa Connery, the Director of Guidance. So you will find, so today, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about some of the work that we've been doing with students in workshops this week. We've been pulling all of the students out of their chemistry classes and meeting with them. And our primary focus right now is on career exploration and, doing some career assessments with students to help them to begin to think about the possibilities after high school. Looking at their personality type. We do an assessment called Do What You Are, based off the Myers-Briggs. Looking at their personality, combining their personality with their interests, and get them to start thinking out about potential careers and majors and pathways to go about accomplishing that. Because, of course, not every student's pathway is going to be the same. And we will work with you throughout the next couple years to help, figure out what that pathway might look like for your student, whether that is, heading off to work or a gap year. Might be a 2-year school, a 4-year school, whatever, a vocational program. We have a lot of different opportunities to share with you and your student, so whatever that pathway may look like, we will help you through that. I think primarily right now, as you kind of get to sophomore year and you start heading into junior year, I think anxiety increases significantly. How many of our parents, is this your oldest student? Yeah. Yeah. So we have a lot of what we classify as new parents, right? And so welcome. I want to reassure you that we have a fantastic process. We do have things all mapped out for you, and we will guide you through this process and, towards graduation and beyond Algonquin. So this is the first workshop where we'll be talking about career assessments, and we will then have another workshop in April with the students, and we'll go over some of that with you during the presentation. Next year, what we will be doing is we will start post-secondary planning with the students in January. We primarily spend the majority of the fall working with our seniors. It's a pretty intense process preparing them for the admissions process and for life after high school. So the fall we spend working with our seniors and, of course, our freshmen in their transition here. And then we will turn our attention to juniors. We will, right after the December break, have a junior workshop where we will share with you, we'll go over, the search process and trying to identify, a program or a school that is the best fit for your student. We will guide you through standardized testing and test prep. Then we'll have an admissions panel presentation for parents and students at the end of January, early February of that next year. In between all of that, we'll be having individual appointments with students, talking with them about what their plans are, what their hopes are for the future after Algonquin. And then in May of junior year, we will have another presentation where we will go over kind of what you need to do to prepare for the admissions process. We'll talk about guidance counselor recommendations, teacher recommendations. We'll give you college essay prompts. We'll talk about, everything that you'll need to know, whether it's the Common App, in preparation for the fall admissions process. As soon as we come back from summer vacation of senior year, right after Labor Day, we will jump into a senior presentation, kind of the nuts and bolts of applying, and we will walk you through the process of how to through the admissions process and how to apply to schools, okay? We have a fantastic program that we're going to introduce you to today. It's Naviance, our college and career planning program, and we utilize that to submit documents electronically to colleges for college search as well as the career assessments. So as you can see, we have a very planned out process that we will follow with you and your students. And I share this with you because I just want to reassure you that this process, we have a plan. We will share that plan with you guys. And I want to try to reduce anxiety and stress as you look to the future for your student. Okay. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn it over to Andrea Hodgkin.
Good morning. Thanks for getting here this morning despite this lovely weather. So I'm actually going to refer to some of the information on page 3 of your workbook. So if you want to take a look on there, I'm going to be talking about GPA, so that's grade point average. So here at Algonquin, we use something called a weighted GPA. Okay, so the weighting means it takes into difficulty the classes the student takes along with their grades. So our GPA, it ranges from 0 to 5.5. This is to accommodate grades in AP or honors classes, where an A on the weighted scale will translate to the challenging nature of the class. So on that page 3, you can look at the chart, and you can see how college prep, honors, and AP classes are weighted. So for example, an A in a CP class, so that's college prep, would be a 4.0. A 5.0 for honors, and then in the AP classes, the A is worth a 5.5. So for more information on how this is calculated, you'll be able to go to the Program of Studies, which is online, and we're going to show you how to access the Program of Studies pretty soon. So GPA is calculated once a year, and this is at the conclusion of every school year. So at the end of June, the sophomores will receive an updated GPA, and that GPA will include the final grades from 9th grade and 10th grade. The updated GPA will be posted on the student's profile on Naviance. And as Lisa was saying, we're going to get onto Naviance today, so we'll be able to show you where that GPA will be posted. In terms of GPA, a lot of students wonder, okay, well, what happens with that GPA? The GPA is something we do put on the high school transcript, which we send to colleges. And the high school transcript, that's just a list of the courses students take, the level of the courses, as well as the final grades for those courses. So the GPA we do send to colleges when students apply senior year. It includes 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. When I was doing workshops this week with sophomores, they were like, oh, so it doesn't matter senior year what I take, and we'll talk about that during the college process, but it absolutely matters the senior year. At that point, when we send the transcript, it includes the grades from 9th, 10th, and 11th. However, we also send report cards senior year. So colleges often recalculate GPA, and they will include those grades from senior year, especially first quarter. All right, so even though we don't calculate it till the end of the year, the colleges will be using that. So here at Algonquin, the way GPA is used, we used to use GPA to determine class rank. We are actually no longer reporting class rank. But here, what it's used for is to determine eligibility for honor roll or for certain programs. So that'd be like National Honor Society, National Business Honor Society, Math Honor Society, Science Honor Society, Art. We have many honor societies. Outside of school, the GPA would be used for college admissions purposes, scholarships, and even good student driving discounts. So GPA does play a factor in a lot of those things. The last thing I'm going to talk about is course exemptions, and that information is at the bottom of page 3. So we have a policy in which students are allowed to exempt one non-required course each semester. Exempting means it does not go into the GPA calculation. So exemptions were created several years ago to encourage students to try electives without concern for how it would impact their GPA. So, for example, a student could take an art class at the college prep level. Maybe they feel like, art's not something they're especially good at, but they want to try it. They could take that without the grade having an impact on their GPA. So based on my experience, the way I see this happening a lot is for students who are taking primarily honors classes and they do want to try a college prep class, but they're concerned what that GPA, like what they would ever get in the college prep class, might lower possibly that GPA. So that's where I've seen it a lot. Course exemptions do give students those opportunities, though, to take that. So when meeting with the sophomores, we reminded them that the exempted course and the letter grade does matter, though. Okay, so I know every year we have some students who come down, maybe they exempted Spanish, they didn't really try that hard, ended up getting a C-, and they're come back and they're like, wait a second, why is that grade on my transcript? And it's because it does count. It just doesn't count towards our calculation. So students will receive the credit for the class. They will receive a letter grade. And then when they apply to colleges, that grade exists. Okay, so oftentimes, as I mentioned, colleges recalculate GPA. So if it's a core academic like Spanish that they do choose to exempt, the college will take that grade and recalculate it. So it does matter, even if you exempt a course, how that student does. So the last thing I want to mention about exemptions is that they must be declared at the time of course selection. So in our sophomore workshops, we went over this policy with them. A student cannot start a course and then exempt it. They cannot start a course, exempt it, and then come back and say, oh, I'd actually like that to count. Or they cannot not exempt a course, come back and they're like, oh, I would like to. So either way, they cannot choose to exempt or not exempt a course after they start. So they need to make that decision during course selection. So we will be going over the course selection process, which we're using IPASS for this year. And as Lisa Connery goes through that, you'll be able to see there is a box where students can indicate if they want to exempt a course. So if they do want to exempt a fine or applied art, they would just put that on IPASS. But if they were wanting to exempt any other type of class, they would need to email their guidance counselor. All right, so I'm going to pass this on to Pam Mackey. All right.
All right, hey everybody, my name's Pam Mackey. I'm going to walk you guys through some of the course information, requirements, and also where you can access the materials that we're going to be using for course selection this year. We're very excited to go paperless this year, and all of the materials are going to be online. I'm actually going to ask you guys to pull up page 4. In addition, there's a separate handout that you received and the 4-year course of studies on there. I'm going to be going to mention that in a second. So to find these materials online, you're going to click on academics, and under academics, there's a spot for guidance. And this is going to bring you to our guidance homepage. On the left, you'll see a tab that says course selection, and you'll click on that. And so everything that we're discussing today is in here as well as in your workbook. All of the materials, in order to figure out descriptions of the courses, are going to be in the 2018-19 program of studies. So you can find our whole catalog of courses that we offer at Algonquin here. In addition, if we're going to click on Applied Arts, these are our business classes, video, wood tech. We also have videos that the teachers and students have made so you can learn more about the courses. For some of the classes, there's videos, but for every class, you can find a description. All right, we're going to go back. So a lot of the students have asked me about the sheets. We used to give those colored sheets out to kids that they would run around and they would get signatures. Now that everything's online, the teachers are actually going to be entering their recommendations online for the students that you'll be able to view and the students will be able to view. Lisa Connery is going to chat about that when I'm done speaking. However, we know that some kids love the sheets, so we've also made those available online. Under course selection reference sheets, your students are going to be juniors, so they're junior year sheets. So this is the same sheet that we've given year after year with updates. We're urging students to actually print these out because it can help them track the courses that they're going to be taking next year. All the core academics are on here, the 5 core academics, as well as electives for applied and fine art. So this can be a helpful guide. All right, and I had mentioned the 4-year course of study plan, which you have hard copies of. I'm going to go through all of the classes students need to graduate from Algonquin, as well as the courses that we recommend students who are college-bound enroll in for the college process. So the first thing I'm going to chat about, so you can just keep, if you look at the 11th grade, I'm going to run through these. The first course students are going to be taking in their junior year is Junior English. English is required all 4 years at Algonquin. Next year, your students are going to be taking junior English, either CP, honors, or they can also take AP language to fulfill this requirement. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the differences are between CP, honors, and AP. CP courses are what most of our students take for post-secondary education. They go in depth with the classes, and they're considered to be very rigorous and accepted by thousands of universities. AP courses are designed to give students college-level curriculum and exams while they're in high school. The curriculum is set by the College Board and challenges them to the highest degree. Honors courses include accelerated material. These courses tend to be more in-depth. There's often more work outside of the classroom. For students to take an honors course, we recommend that they have advanced reading and writing skills. When we're looking at a student's makeup of their schedule, oftentimes we get the question, how many honors courses should I take? How many APs do I need? And the answer to that, it really depends on the student. The answer to that is what is appropriate for your student. So if I'm sitting down and trying to build a schedule with a student, I'll look at the amount of honors level courses they need. We'll talk about how much homework they're doing. We'll talk about what their interests are. I wouldn't suggest a student sign up for AP Lang if they're not interested in English. I would say maybe focus your energy in a different area. All right, so for math, we only require 3 years of math. However, Massachusetts public colleges require 4 years. All of our students take a 4th year of math, even though it is not a requirement. Depending on what math track your student's on, next year they're either going to be taking Algebra 2 CP, Algebra 2 Honors, Pre-Calculus, or Integrated Math. There's other math courses as well. We have a lot to offer in that department. For social studies, we require students take 3 years, U.S. History, U.S. History 2, and World History. Next year, they'll be taking World History, and there's also an option to take Advanced Placement World History. Science, students are required to take biology, chemistry, and physics. Both for science and social studies, we have a ton of cool electives that are going to be offered for students to take for the 4th year, in addition to next year. A lot more courses open up for the juniors. They'll have a lot more flexibility and a lot more to choose from. World language is not an Algonquin requirement, but we ask students and we ask families to keep in mind that most colleges are going to require 2 years of a consecutive language, so Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. We usually urge our students to go ahead and take that 3rd and 4th year also. The main reason for that is when colleges are looking at a student's transcript, it shows that the student has studied the language more in depth. They're more familiar with the language and the culture. Very selective schools also require a 3rd or 4th year, so it's good to keep that in mind. A couple other classes that are required. Hopefully most of your students by now have taken Computer Essentials. That's a requirement that's offered in the 9th grade, although sometimes we have 10th graders that take it. Economics is required. I mentioned to students today when we did workshops that they could take it next year. It's a half-year course entitled Microeconomics. And there's a CP level, an honors level, an AP level, and there is also financial literacy, and all 4 of those require that, fulfill that requirement. Students will also take 1 course of gym each year. So as I mentioned before, I can't say this enough to the kids. Sometimes they're like, oh, so senior year I can take a bunch of studies. And I say, well, if you're planning on applying to college, you're going to want to keep those core academics. So think about what you might want to take. It's a chance to kind of look at what you might want to major in, what you might want to study, and advance your study in that area. All right, that wraps it up for me. I'm going to pass it on to Lisa Connery, and she's going to actually bring you into iPass and show you how the process is going to work. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Pam. I think looking over the 4-year course of study, encouraging your students to consider what are they going to do 11th and 12th grade, I think is really important to kind of plan out those 2 years. Because they might decide after looking at, junior and senior year and the courses that they want to take, they might decide like, oh, wow, maybe I should do economics in junior year so that I have room for this course in senior year. So I think it's really great to sit down with that 4-year course of study and just kind of think about out. Now, just because you're, developing a plan, it's tentative. It doesn't mean that a student can't change their mind or go in a different direction. But I do think it's good to look at, both years as you're considering what you want to do next year. Okay, so many of you have been on IPASS. We opened up the student data management system this year as a way to kind of streamline, data that is sent out to you, whether it's the report card or student schedules, attendance. You can see attendance for your students. And this year we're going to go ahead and do course selection through IPASS as well. So you can go ahead and you can access IPASS from the Algonquin website under the Families tab. Now, if for some reason you have not requested an account, you can see right here when you first click on IPASS, for parents, you have to click here to register. So if you click that button, you do have to input some information, and then we have to go in and we have to approve it. So when you go in to register for an account, it won't be an automatic approval. And the reason for that is because the information that is in IPASS is confidential. And it is student records. So we have to make sure that guardian information fully matches 100% with the student they are requesting to view. Because what we don't want to do is, share information for another student with the wrong parent. Okay, so just know that once you submit the request, our support staff is good about checking that and, approving parents as quickly as they can. If there's any questions, they will reach back out to you via the email that you've provided them for clarification, just to make sure that all of our records align properly. So if for some reason you have not had an opportunity to register for IPASS, this is where you'll go ahead and do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to log in first. First, I'm going to show you what your student will see in IPASS. So we have a couple test accounts here so that we can share this information with you guys. Now, it is important to note that on Monday, course selection will open up for students and parents. Some teachers have been having conversations with students this week about what courses and what levels they might want to take next year, and they've been diligently entering their recommendations into IPASS. Teachers have until next week, March 9th, to finalize their recommendations. So some teachers, once the portal is open, some teachers will continue to have conversations throughout the next week with students about courses that they would like to take. Now, you're going to see when students first log in, anytime you log into IPASS, you have to hit the plus button. Okay, the little plus sign here. And that will expand so that you can see the other different tabs, whether it's a schedule, grades, attendance. We're going to be looking at iStudent recommendations. So when we click on that, it does take a minute to kind of populate, so just wait for a second when you first log in. What you're going to see at the top, it's going to say that we're currently in the 17-18 school year, but the recommendations that you're going to be looking at are for the 18-19 school year. So at the top, you're going to see, what your student has been recommended for. Okay, so all courses, required courses and elective courses in the core content areas need a recommendation. So let's say your student is, like Pam mentioned, the students are going to be doing world history. So your student is going to be recommended for world history at whatever level is appropriate for them. And then let's say they would like to go ahead and take an elective in the social studies department. They'll have a conversation with their history teacher about those electives, and then the history teacher will recommend them for that course. So if they want to do criminal justice or they want to do psychology or sociology, the history teacher will enter that recommendation for them. Okay, so the top of the sheet, you're going to see all of the recommendations. You're going to see who made the recommendation. Here's a little, and then we just have some, directions here. I'll come back to overrides in a minute. So you're going to have to go down at the bottom is where students will enter elective courses. So any courses in the Fine and the Applied Arts department, students can go ahead and self-select those courses for next year. We're encouraging students to offer us, 3 to 4 elective choices. And for a lot of the students, there will be additional boxes there because we've been in workshops. We've added a few elective courses, so this student doesn't have quite as many boxes. But they can go ahead and they can enter a course number. So Pam had recommended that they print out the course sheet as a guide. On that course selection sheet are all of the numbers for the courses. So that is a nice tool to have next to them as they're planning out their courses and entering them into iPass. So they could simply enter the number of the course, or they could hit the magnifier and they could search for courses. And when you hit the magnifier, that brings up our entire course catalog, which is very similar to our program of studies. It has course descriptions in there for all of the courses, minus videos. There's no videos in there, okay? So then once you've entered an elective, you'll simply, if you would like to exempt that elective, like Andrea Hodgkin talked about our exemption policy, you'll simply write exempt in the box right here. If your student would like to prioritize an elective, they could go ahead and put a number in this box as well. 1 for their top elective, 2 for their second choice, okay? And so once they do that and they hit submit, it will populate up top. So we'll be able to see not only recommendations, but elective choices that the student has made. So we can see right here, our test student has selected Art 1, Marketing, Drama 1. If the student had exempted it, it would say exempt right next to the elective. And you can see at the top we have early childhood where we did write the word exempt. So as counselors are going in and approving, courses for students, they will be able to see on their screen that the student has exempted the course, and they'll go ahead and adjust the curriculum level so that the course is not counted in the GPA. You can also, we're encouraging students, aside from selecting 3 to 4 elective courses, we're asking them to also offer, some alternative electives. And so they can go ahead and by doing that, once they've added their primary electives and they've hit submit, they go back up to that elective and they hit add alternate. And then they can do the same process. They simply put the numbers for the courses in, they hit submit, and then what it does is it will load with that course. So let's say we're doing conflict resolution for a student, and we're unable to get their top choice elective because of some of the other courses that they've chosen to take. We will automatically look and see, okay, what other courses are they interested in taking, and we'll do our best to try to schedule them in those courses. So we are encouraging students to also provide us with a couple alternative electives, all right? I'd also like to talk about the override process, all right? So let's say that we go in here, and let's say that a teacher has made a recommendation that you don't necessarily agree with. We'll stick with the history. Let's say your student's teacher goes in and they recommend them for World History 2CP. And, you and your student, disagree with that recommendation, maybe don't quite understand the recommendation. There is a process that you have to follow. And that would be that you have to parents have to reach out to the teacher to have a discussion with them about the recommendation. And I think that's an important component to all of this, is to really understand what is it that the teacher is seeing in the classroom. What is it, to have a conversation about your students. It might be interest level. It might also be skills. They might feel that the student would be better served at the college prep level to continue to develop their skill set. So it's really important that you have that conversation with the teacher about their recommendation. If you, after having that conversation, you still disagree with the recommendation, you and your student have the option of overriding that recommendation. And then what you would do is your student would get the override paperwork from the teacher. Okay, so they would go and get that paperwork. That paperwork has to be signed by the teacher, the department chair, the parent, you, and then return to guidance by March 23rd. Okay, so Course selection will open up on March 5th. It will close on March 16th. All overrides have to be initiated by March 16th. So those conversations with teachers have to have occurred by March 16th. We give a couple days for paperwork to be submitted down to our office in case for some reason they're unable to get a signature or they leave the paper at home. So then you have until March 23rd to return that paperwork to our office. Once we receive that paperwork, the counselor will go into the system, and let's say, it is World History 2, they'll change that recommendation from World History 2 CP to World History 2 Honors. Please note that AP courses are not subject to overrides. Okay, only CP to honors level courses. And I really, really would encourage you to heed the advice of your teachers and the recommendations that they're making, and really work with your student to discuss with them their interests, their skills, and bringing balance to their overall schedule so that they're not too stressed. Okay, so once all of this information has been entered in here, students are going to be going into IPASS, and they actually have to approve them, all right? So if you have, let's say you have a recommendation that you don't necessarily agree with, and you're going to follow the override process, you still need to approve that course and send that course into our scheduling system for us, okay? So students will go down, and they'll check the box as to whether or not they approve the course. Now, you may find, as teachers are having conversations with students, a student may initially go to their history teacher and say, oh, I'm really interested in criminal justice, psychology, and sociology. But then they go and they talk to their science teacher, and they're like, oh my gosh, that forensics class sounds awesome. I want to do forensics, right? So now they may have more recommendations in the system than what they can take during the year, all right? So they can go in, and let's say they just decide, like, all right, I'm going to do criminal justice, psychology, and forensics, but I'm not going to do sociology. They just leave that box unchecked, okay? And then they check off what they want to take. They scroll down. There is a box right here under the override process information. You check that, and then you simply hit submit, and that sends their requests into our system for their guidance counselor to review. And counselors will be reviewing all of their students' requests. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to log out, and I'm just going to show you the parent portal. It looks very similar to the student portal, minus the ability to add courses. Your students should be the one adding their elective courses, and then you can review them with them. So when we log in, again, remember, iParent plus sign to expand the tabs. We're going to go to Parent Recommendations, where you can view the recommendations that are being made. Now, if you have more than one student in our district, period, you have to hit this down arrow to select your student. So you might have a student, say, at Milliken. You don't have access to their information through IPASS, but because you're their guardian, they're going to show up on your IPASS. So if you log in, you don't initially see your student. You just have to toggle that with that arrow through the different students. So we're going to pick our test student who is actually here at Algonquin. We're going to scroll down, and it takes a minute to load. So you're going to see here are all of the recommendations. You can see who's made the recommendation and if your student has approved the recommendation as well, okay? And you can see if a student has elected to exempt it, because the word exempt was over to the side. And then as a parent, you're simply going to go down after talking with your student and say, I approve of the courses that they're going to be taking next year. You check all those boxes, you hit submit, and we will now see, what you have approved for courses as well. So all of this has to be done by March 16th. So I did a presentation the other night at APTO, and my recommendation to the parents at the APTO meeting was to plan on scheduling some time, not this weekend, but next weekend, to sit down with your students to review their course selections for next year, just to see if, do you have any questions? Because all teacher recommendations are due by next Friday, March 9th. So at that point, you'll have all of the recommendations for your student for next year. So that next weekend would be a great time to schedule some time, sit down with them, review those recommendations, figure out, are we missing anything? Do we have any questions? Do I need to have a conversation with any of your teachers about the override process? We're letting kids know that, by doing so, that allows you to plan accordingly, so that you've initiated any conversations by the deadline, March 16th. Students are able to submit their course selections by the deadline on March 16th. And you're able to get that paperwork in by March 23rd, because we do not accept late overrides, all right? So you have 3 weeks to complete that process. And so we're encouraging you to check in with your students and review all of that. Okay? So it's a pretty simple process. And our kids are, they're definitely much more tech savvy than we are, and they're right on their phones and on their computers. I mean, when we release schedules, I think, 900 kids had their schedule in like 10 minutes of iPass, being opened up. So they're pretty tech savvy, you sit down with them if technology isn't your thing. But it is a pretty simple process. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your student's guidance counselor. They're happy, to help. Okay, so that's it for course selection, and I'll take questions at the end if anybody has any, and I'm going to turn it over to Dave Briglio.
Okay, so what we're looking at today is standardized testing, which is definitely a stressful test to take and part of the college admissions process. And we want to come up with a plan for the kids to help them through this because, like I said, it is a stressful test. So the first thing we're going to look at is the PSATs. So the PSATs is our shortened version of the SATs. It's a practice test. So colleges will not be receiving PSAT scores. We encourage all our junior students to sign up for the PSATs. I know a good amount of sophomores probably took it this year as well, as depending on what math class they are. If they're in a more advanced math class, they may have felt ready to sit down and try the PSATs, but we definitely encourage them to do it again for their junior year. When they are signing up for the test junior year and they sit down to take it, they're eligible for to qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. So this is actually a pretty challenging scholarship to get. I looked at the statistics last night, and out of the 1.6 million test takers, it was less than 8,000 who received that scholarship. So it is pretty challenging, but they do qualify for it depending on the test scores during their junior year. So the PSATs measure critical reading and writing as well as their math problem-solving skills. The SATs are out of 1,600. The PSATs are out of a 1520, with each section going up to 760 for the score. The PSATs will be held in October, and it will be on a Saturday. It'll be at Algonquin, and then information to register for that PSAT will be going out after summer. So when we get back from summer break, there will be emails going out to parents letting you know test date, which I believe is October 13th. How to register for the test, the price of it, materials that your students need, that type of thing. We generally don't recommend students do extensive test prep for the PSATs. We really want this first round of testing or second round of PSATs, depending if they took it as sophomores, to be stress-free. Go in, do your best with it, and then use the PSAT results to start prepping for the SATs, and it will help with the ACTs as well when they sit down to take that actual test that will go out to colleges during the spring of their junior year. So on to SATs and ACTs. So in the spring of their junior year, we generally recommend that students take at least one round of the ACTs and one round of the SATs. Colleges across the country don't have a preference between those two tests, so they will take either one, and they won't ask students to submit both of them. Between the SATs and the ACTs, moving into their senior year, I usually recommend students concentrate on the test that they scored better on between the two of them and that they felt more comfortable with. They can still do a second round of each test if they want to, but then you run into some test burnout. So we usually have them try both spring of the junior year and then pick the test that they were most comfortable with and then concentrate on that one moving into their senior year for a second round of testing. Algonquin, so there's a couple different test prep options that students can look at more towards their junior year. There's online test prep. There is classes, there's individual tutoring. They all have different prices to them. Algonquin in the past has offered SAT prep classes, and they've offered 4 or 5 different sessions of them. So we definitely recommend coming up with a test prep plan with your student. And when we get back after Christmas break, junior year, we go into our junior workshops and we get a lot more in depth with the testing process, when to sign up for these tests, test prep options with all your students. There's also subject tests, which you may have heard about. Subject tests are going to be 1 hour long tests run through the SAT or the College Board, and it's going to be with subjects like literature, history, math, science, foreign language. There's only a small percentage of colleges out there that will actually request your students submit a subject test. Those schools usually be the highly competitive colleges. So generally, a majority of our seniors don't end up having to take subject tests. For sophomore year, some of our students in AP US History may decide to take a subject test for that history subject, which would be, they could sign up for it in June at the end of this year, because that would correspond to the end of the class. So if they are interested in doing a subject test in the history, maybe that June test date that the SAT offers could be the right subject test for them. And we also want to mention this, obviously the college admission requirements, ACT or SAT, a lot of schools are saying that is a test you need to submit, but there are 900 plus colleges out there that are SAT, ACT test optional, meaning that they do not require you to submit standardized testing as part of the admissions package. They really concentrate on the student's GPA, their transcript, their resume, their letters of recommendation, and they really care about that student more as of 4 years that they spend here compared to the 2 or 3 dates of testing. So if your student is really worried about how their test scores are going to reflect and if it's going to hinder their admissions process, there are a lot of schools and a lot of really good schools that are test optional, and that's always a good idea to have a couple of those on your list when you are starting to build that college list moving into the start of your senior year. So I think that's it for testing for me. Connor Brosnan's up. He's going to look at or talk about the CRC with you.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk very briefly about the CRC, like Dave just said, which is the Career Resource Center. It's a really valuable resource that we're pretty lucky to have. The CRC coordinator is Linda Hutchins. I don't know if any of you have ever met her before. She's awesome, super friendly, tons of knowledge. She gave me a list of all the things that she provides to the CRC, so I'm just going to kind of run through these. And we're actually going to ask you guys for some help as well, which I'll get to in a second. So the CRC is open all day long. It is, when you come in the main entrance, it is those glass windows right in front of you in the rotunda. It's open to all students, freshmen through senior year. Some of the things that she provides in there, number one is mock interviews. So we provide a mock interview to every single junior. We'll get them down during their junior year and kind of run them through what an interview looks like, whether it's a job interview, a college interview. And then we do have seniors that will come down if they do have a college interview, just for some quick prep prior to going into that interview. We have job announcements down there. So if your student's looking for a summer job, that's a really good place to start. You know, a bunch of different organizations, businesses in the community will just drop us flyers saying we're looking for a waiter, we're looking for someone to work in our office helping us, you know, organize whatever it might be, the files. So we have a really job opportunities for pretty much anything you could think of. Also, if they're looking for a job and they don't know how to fill out an application, they don't have a resume, again, they're a little worried about the interview process, Linda can help them with all that as well. She's more than happy to sit down with kids, review their resume, help them fill out applications, help them send out the application. She's there to provide all that. They can just make an appointment and pop down and talk to her about that. Some other stuff that we're kind of getting into a little bit more now is career education opportunities. So we're actually hosting a career day coming up. It's on Friday, March 16th, so in 2 weeks. This will be with the English, Math, and Social Studies departments. So we have some parents, some people from the community coming in, and they'll be providing information to the students in terms of what their job entails, how the education required to get to that job. We still need some volunteers. We haven't had quite the feedback we were hoping for. So if you happen to work in a field that's related to English, math, or social studies, and you're willing to come in on Friday, March 16th and speak to the students here about your career, what you like about your career, what you don't like, the education required, what your daily job might look like, we would really appreciate that. And all you need to do is just contact Linda Hutchins in the CRC, and she can kind of talk to you about it a little bit further. We have some parents that are coming in all day. We have some that are only going to be here for an hour because that's all they can give us, and that's totally fine. So please, if you're able to do that, just contact Linda Hutchins in the CRC, and she'll kind of provide you some information about how that would look. We also provide job shadowing, internships, informational interviews. Summer enrichment programs are all listed down there. So basically, if your student's looking for any opportunity to try something out, Linda's the person to go talk to. She's also compiling a career resource directory, and again, this is where I ask for your help. If you work in a field that maybe is a little different, something that you could have a student come in and job shadow you for a day, if you can provide an internship, all she's asking is just to provide some information to us, and if we have a student that kind of fits your mold, if you're in nursing and you can have someone come in and follow you around for a day, if you work in an engineering firm and you could allow a student to come in over the summer and kind of help out a little bit with paperwork, please talk to Linda Hutchins about that as well, because we would love to have our students have some opportunities to get out there and try some different careers and find their interests and their passions. So anything you provide would be great. Other things the CRC does during the senior year, a lot of students will come down to have help with the college application process. Obviously, the guidance counselors, we help them one-on-one quite a bit, but sometimes it gets crazy down in our office, and if they have a quick question, they can always pop in and talk to Linda about that. She, again, really knowledgeable about the whole process. She has information about testing, like Dave was saying. We have test prep information down there. She has the old school SAT, ACT books, which probably no one really uses anymore, but they're down there if they want them. We have computers the students can use to do some test prep if they want. She has a list of tutors, so again, just a good place to kind of get some information. She puts together a college fair every year. It's open to everyone, but generally we say juniors and seniors are the ones that should be going. So in the fall of next year, we'll have a college fair here at Algonquin. Usually we have about 100 schools that show up, so it's a really good opportunity for your students to just kind of come in and kind of start the college process, just start listening to what colleges have to say, gather some information, get some free pencils. Other things she does, she has information about gap years, career options for students that maybe don't want to go to college after high school. Maybe they want to jump into the workforce. There's a lot of really cool programs now to get kids kind of jumped, get them right in. We actually had A. Dewey Pyle, the trucking company, in here the other day, and they're providing really valuable training, basically. They're the first one in the country, I believe, to provide training on big rigs, and they'll pay for it, and then they'll get you right on the road. So we have some students that are looking into that opportunity as well. She also has military information. If your students think about the military, you can always get a recruiter in to talk to them through the CRC. Also senior year, there's scholarship information. Scholarships don't really apply to sophomores or juniors, but during their senior year, there'll be plenty of scholarship information that they can kind of check out. Also, I'm sorry, I'm just running through all this, but I want to provide all this information to you guys. For juniors and seniors, we have a college admissions reps that come in, and these are actually the representatives from colleges that are actually reading the applications one day. So in the fall of next year, your student's allowed to go to the college admissions reps meetings, and we have hundreds of colleges that come in. Generally, they're pretty small groups. Some schools, it might be like 3 or 4 kids in there. Obviously, schools like UMass, UConn, we have, maybe like 30, 40 kids that show up. And basically, it's like a really kind of brief information session. They'll answer questions. They kind of give the students some opportunity to sit down with them, ask any specific questions they might have about the college. And it's a really good way for them to connect with the admissions reps, because believe it or not, these people remember your students if they have a conversation with them. They'll take notes. They'll say, hey, I met this kid, Mike Smith, and he seemed really nice, and he was really interested in the school, and he asked some really good questions. And that might go into a file somewhere. So definitely encourage them next year in the fall to kind of check out those college admissions reps opportunities. And lastly, she wanted me to let you guys know that she has computers that the students are more than welcome to use if they have a study. I think she really wants to try to connect with as many students as possible, have them be comfortable coming down. So definitely encourage your student, if they're looking for a summer job, looking for a summer program possibly, if they want help with filling out applications, encourage them to come down, meet with Linda Hutchins. She's more than happy to meet with your students. And again, if anyone here is willing to kind of help us out in terms of our career day or go into our career resource directory, we would love to kind of add to those. So please, again, contact Linda Hutchins, and we'd be more than happy to have you on board. All right? Thank you, and I'm going to pass this off to Jason Lessard.
All right, if everyone could go to page 8 in the workbook. I'm going to be discussing is this working? That's there. Never mind. I will be discussing a software program called Naviance that we recently introduced to your students. It's a college and career readiness program that the students will be working with until graduation. So this year, the focus is going to be on self-discovery. So we're going to explore all the areas with the program with them this year on the self-discovery portion. This week, they actually finished the Myers-Briggs test, which Kate and Becca will talk about a little bit later. But the first thing we did was we got them started. So what they did was they clicked on the academics tab on the homepage, and they went to the guidance link, and from there there's a Naviance tab right there, and then they registered for an account. So they already did that, and now they can all log into their Naviance account. And from there, we explored the homepage with them, which you'll see in a second. So this is going to be useful for all the remainder of high school. So we update this frequently so they can sign into their account and they can actually see what's going on, what's useful, what's pertinent information, what should they be doing. So they can see there's sophomore workshops. They should complete the Do What You Are, that's the Myers-Briggs. We also have complete the career interest survey as well. So it gives some tips right there. And there's also, if they scroll up, you have 9 new messages. So those are important emails that we send out through Naviance, and we can click on that. And that's something that they want to check. So they want to look into that link and they want to check those emails. And we send stuff out throughout sophomore, junior, and senior year. So the next thing we did is probably one of the most important pieces that we asked students to finish, and it's under the About Me tab. We asked them to click on this, scroll down to the profile section, and you want to make sure that your students did do this, because what they did was they actually linked their parents to their account. So this gives you access to view their account as well, and they can go in. They should have added you and added your email. And that gives you access to their Naviance account. So it allows you to view things that they're doing. It doesn't allow you to actually edit things, or remove things, or even take the exams. But you can actually go through and look at what they've done. So also it's really important at the very bottom is academic information, and the GPA is listed there. So this is the GPA from only the end of 9th grade. So this is their GPA based off the final grades from 9th grade. Next year, they'll be able to see their GPA from 9th and 10th year final grades, and so on. So they can check this at the end of each year for an updated GPA, and we'll let students know when it's updated. So just so you guys know, Naviance is truly an amazing tool. Like I said, they use it throughout now until graduation. So it can help students understand their strengths, connect their interests to specific careers. They can research those careers to find out what are the required skills. They can watch videos. They can see potential earnings on those careers. They can find related majors to those careers. And then those majors, of course, can lead them to potential colleges as well. So junior year, they're going to be using Naviance quite a bit, and they're going to actually be using this program to help them research and find colleges to go and visit. It has a tool which can identify specific colleges for them, and that could be based off how big of a school they might want. It could be based off where the location of the school, what majors they're interested in. It also saves accepted and declined data, so meaning students who apply to specific schools from Algonquin, it saves the data whether they were accepted or whether they were denied, and that data can be used to help them compare themselves to peers who went to Algonquin with similar courses and applied to that very school. So would that school be a good target school? Would it be a reach school? Would it be a safety school? And lastly, during senior year, we actually use this program to actually help them apply to school. So it's how we send their transcripts and use teacher letters of recommendation. So we're going to be using this each and every year going forward. This is just really a quick snapshot of the program. Really this week they registered, they activated the accounts, they added their parents, and then they did something called the Myers-Briggs. One thing we did ask them to do as well, if you click on the career tab, They did not finish this in the workshop. This was kind of supplement homework if they wanted. There's a career interest profiler. So they can actually fill this out. Myers-Briggs is based off more personality. It does have some great resources, but the career interest profiler, it actually lists specific tasks to careers. So it's much more job-oriented than personality-oriented. So that means, it will ask you, do you like doing this task, yes or no? And then it finds appropriate jobs based off the tasks that you like to do that might interest you. Why I think this is a great opportunity to fill this out now is because we talked about course selection. So if they fill this out, they find some amazing jobs that they never even considered. Maybe they can actually now take those jobs and say, are there any, I never thought about business. What business courses does Algonquin offer? And maybe they can explore those interests because they filled out the career interest profiler. So it might be worth doing with them, sitting down, having them fill it out, go through what careers pop up, see if anything sounds interesting, and if there's any courses they might want to explore. But now I'm going to have Becca and Kate, and they're going to go through the Myers-Briggs. Oh, just Becca? Sorry.
Sorry, I don't like this tall thing, so. Maybe. Come on, work. Work, work. No? Maybe not. Hello? Oh, boy. Pam, figure this out for me. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the shortest counselor here. And I'm also the one who, many of you might have heard of ADHD. I'm just the H, I'm the hyper one. So that's why I need a mic so I can move around. My notes are over there, but I tend to sort of impromptu things. That's why Kate's sitting and she's gonna tell me when to cut off. Big question for you. As I was sitting here and listening to all this information about course selection, AP classes, honor level classes, then standardized testing, college, where's your stress level right now? Are you like way, way high? Okay, one of the reasons, thank you so much. All right, now we're better. All right, one of the reasons why we do these interest inventories, the personality profile, is to really try and get your students to start thinking about who they are. And guess what? They're 15, 16, they don't have a clue who they are. They can be really annoying at home, and they will not talk to you. So this tool actually helps you talk to them kind of about your own career path. That's why if you will maybe let Linda Hutchins know that you want to come in to talk about your career path, it can help them. Most kids feel like they need to know what they want to do when they grow up. They need to know already what kind of colleges are they thinking about. I met with a kid the other day who was, just struggling emotionally. And I was like, so, where's your stress level? And he goes, it's way up here. I'm thinking of college. He's a freshman. I'm like, whoa, let's slow down here. What do you like to do? We forget that these are kids. They need downtime. Now, unfortunately, all they're doing is sitting on their cell phones, and that's not necessarily good. Get off of social media, go outside, not when it's pouring rain and we're having a nor'easter, but, when it gets sunny out. All right, I get to stay on task here, right? Yes, okay, back to on task. So, the do what you are, you kept hearing Myers-Briggs. How many of you have ever heard of Myers-Briggs? All right, quite a few. I actually got into guidance after doing the Myers-Briggs and the strong interest inventory, which also match up to the Do What You Are and our career interest inventory. I won't give you my story, but I used to have jobs every couple of years before I hit 40 and decided I needed to do something that I actually liked. And I've been here about 18 years, so I'm not going anywhere yet. We had the kids go down under careers to Do What You Are. Now, Myers-Briggs, these two very smart, researchy kind of people, went out, talked to thousands and thousands of people, came up with 16 different personality types. And basically what they have found is that based on certain personality types, people who are happy in their jobs, they may not all be the same because none of us are clones, none of us are the same. But to be happy in your job, it has to really fit part of your personality. You will never see me sitting down being an accountant. There is no way. I would really hate it. Guidance, walking around, that works. So after the kids finish this, and some kids, unfortunately, yesterday, even though we had them in workshops, were not able to finish because Naviance, we love technology, Naviance decided to shut down on us. So we have asked them to do this at home. We will follow up at the end after course selection with kids about who didn't finish it to get them to do it. But certainly for those of you who are here, you can ask your kids about it. You will see that Crystal Ball, she's an ESFJ. And then what Naviance does is it gives kids a quick snapshot of what that means. Basically, you have 4 different areas. The E's or the I's, that's where we draw our energy from. Are you more of an extroverted person? You know, you go out, you draw your energy from being with people. Or are you more of an introverted person? And in our society, introverts get like this sort of negative feeling, but it's really not. You can be a more introverted person where you're drawing your energy from yourself, from artistic things, from thinking about things a little bit. So that's how you're drawing, where are you best drawing your energy? And you can be a little in the middle. The Crystal Ball, she's a sensor. And again, this is where you are, this is why I needed my thing, but where you're processing information. You know, how are you getting information? Are you sensing it? Do you think about it a little bit? Are you an intuitive type? Are you a high end? Do you go by the gut? You know, do you just sort of jump into things? The feelers, and again, I guess I do need my notes. Thank you. Okay, yes, so the sensings and the intuitives is how you process information, and then the feelers or thinkers. This is how you make decisions. So if you're a feeler type, if you're a thinker type, you're probably really thinking a little bit before you jump in to try maybe a new course or to go out and interview for a job. If you're a feeler, you might just say, that sounds fine. I'm going to go do it. Oh, psychology sounds like fun. Yeah, I want to do that. Feelers tend to take in a little bit more about what other people are thinking, which for our teenagers can be great, but it can also not be so good because, again, a high feeler kind of person tends to get too involved with what their friends are thinking and doing versus sometimes what is best for them. And then the last ones, the judgers or the perceivers, is how do you make decisions? Again, judgers are pretty good about looking at the whole picture and thinking, yeah, this would be a good decision for me. I should not jump off that bridge and into that water, even though it looks like fun. Whereas a perceiver might just say, woohoo, go right down. I like jumping off bridges into waters. And it's also how they organize things. So if your student is not very organized, has a lot of stuff all over the place, maybe not always finishing projects, start a bunch of different things, they might be a high feeler, right? They might be a high feeler versus a judger. The reason why I love this tool so much is because it gives kids, probably the first time ever, a kind of overview of who they are. If we go to this view full report on the right, and this is always fun when I see kids reading, it gets really weird. All of a sudden they start reading, people like you are warm and friendly and personable. And a kid will read this and go, wow, that really sounds like me. And then they find out, oh, I'm a sort of practical and down-to-earth person. I like to make, I like to be very clear, and I like explicit directions. Then they can start to think about, you know, when they have a teacher that they love or don't love, sometimes it's how their personality fits with that teacher, that boss, that sibling, that parent. So this gives them a short description. Below, we all have strengths, we all have blind spots. So again, having them see this and see, now, not everything 100% is going to fit, but it can definitely help them see where their strengths are, where their blind spots are. And then there is a bit on colleges, which later on as juniors, as we're meeting with our juniors, I always hop back to this or say, hop back and look at what's important to you for college, for career satisfiers. But the best part right now for your students as they're thinking about themselves, where their stress is, keeping that balance, is their learning style. This stuff is cool. This stuff we have for you, for your children, for free. And this can really help them start to understand themselves as learners. And this can make some really cool conversations for you guys at home as you start to share with them, hey, maybe I went to college to be an English major, and then I decided to go to another college to be a communications major. And then maybe I did this job first, but that led me to here. To let them understand that there's a whole world out there, and to not stress so much about who you're going to be, what are you going to be when you grow up, but what do you care about, and what makes you happy? Because if they're happy, trust me, as parents, you will be happy. How'd I do? Am I done? Yeah? Okay. They do like to cut me off.
All right, so I'm just going to quickly go over a little bit more information here because we do have workshops with the students coming up in a couple minutes, so I'll try to make this brief. So after the students have looked at their full report, they can click See Related Careers. And this will give students a list of careers that are suitable for their personality type, and they're listed based on if the career will be something the student may be very interested in, and it works its way down to something that they might somewhat be interested in. So right next to the careers, you'll see that it gives possible fields of study that the student can major in order to get into that line of work. For this example, we're going to click on interpreters and translators. And it will give the student a description of the job, and then you'll see right below it, it lists the Holland's interest code. So as Jason mentioned on Naviance, under the careers tab, there's that career interest profiler. And it will give you your Holland code and where your strongest interests are. So you can see this student or this career is artistic, social, and conventional. So again, some students may have started the career interest profiler, but we did focus on the Do What You Are this week in workshops. So if we scroll back up, there's different tabs for knowledge and skills. So this will tell the student the most important skills, the most important abilities and knowledge areas for being an interpreter, translator. Also the tasks and activities, so what a typical day may look like if you are an interpreter or translator, and common work activities. And also everyone's favorite tab, the wages. So it lists the national average wage, and then it also breaks it down by state. So you can go to Massachusetts and see, you know, what the average is, and also based on any other state as well. So if we go back to the overview and scroll down, it gives us related college majors again, and then also the related career clusters and pathways. So we are going to click on the education and training. And if we scroll down, there's plenty to look at, but one thing that we really like is the plan of study. So you can click the plan of study, and it'll show you what the student might want to focus on for courses not only in high school, but also, you know, the plan of study that they'll have after high school as well in college. So you can see some examples of the courses here that they should be taking, maybe if they're wanting to go in this direction, and also the courses that they're probably going to have to study at the college level. So that is my Reader's Digest version of this career report. So now we're going to open up to questions and answers, but we do have workshops coming up soon, so.
Thanks, Kate. As you can see, there is a wealth of information in Naviance, and we'll continue to use Naviance the rest of the time that your student is here at Algonquin. We're starting right now with careers, and of course we'll branch into college search, and like I had mentioned earlier, we do the admissions process and submitting credentials through Naviance as well. So there's a lot of information in there, and a lot that you know, your student can kind of research and look at. So we're going to open it up to questions now. If you have a question, if you could just raise your hand, we'll come to you, okay? Go that side back.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha.
I have just a quick question about the standardized testing. The Earned Qualified Index score, do we know what that score is, and is that score the same whether you live in Massachusetts or Alabama or California?
I can actually answer that. Every year that score changes, depends on that year, that state, in terms of where the highest is. So we can't tell our juniors right now who took the PSATs, we cannot tell them right now whether or not they would even have that opportunity. And that will come out, it always comes out in the fall of their senior year.
So it does fluctuate from year to year, and it is different from state to state. And of course, the state of Massachusetts is going to have we're talking about the PSAT and the indicator for the National Merit Scholarship, okay? And so Massachusetts index is very, very high compared to other states. You know, educationally, I mean, Massachusetts is one of the top, you know, states in the country. So students in Massachusetts perform well on standardized testing, so the index for our kids is going to be higher. But it does fluctuate from year to year.
Hi, two quick questions on APs. You mentioned that during course selection there was no override for APs. I wasn't sure what that meant, and I know it's different for every student, but what is the mean number of APs that a junior takes at Algonquin?
So in order for students to enroll in an AP course, they have to be recommended by the teacher. If they are not recommended by the teacher, some AP courses have very defined prerequisites. And if a student has not met that prerequisite, then they cannot enroll in the AP course, okay? You can, yes, you can go down. If you're recommended, let's say you're recommended for AP World, but your student decides that maybe their interests lie more in the science area. They could go and maybe elect to do AP Chemistry, and then they could choose to do World History 2 honors. So you can come down, but what you can't do is go up, so you cannot override into an AP course if you are not recommended or if you haven't met the prerequisite for the course, okay? And to answer your question, what is the number of AP courses that, you know, a junior or a senior might take. I mean, there's no right answer to that. I don't have a mean number. I can say that, you know, sophomores can take 1 course, juniors can take up to like 3. I really think it's based on the student, the individual student, their interests, their skill set, what they have going on, you know, and bringing balance to their overall schedule. So it's really about, you know, where your students' interests lie. And I think that really should be the conversation, you know. What do you want to do in the future? You know, what are you passionate about? Because if a student enrolls in a course that they're not passionate about, it can be a real struggle.
Hi, my question has to do with the override form itself. So is that something that is electronic that the teacher can give out, or the student physically has to go get a hard copy?
Great question. The override process, after the parent speaks to the teacher will give the form to the student, then the teacher signs the form, the student signs the form, the parent signs the form, then the student has to go to the department chair, get that form signed by the department chair before it's brought back to guidance. So there is a process, and that's where sometimes, as Lisa was saying, sometimes kids forget that form, and then on the 23rd, they're rushing around trying to finish all the signatures, and oops, that department chair is home because they're sick. 23rd is the cutoff. That's why we give you guys a lot of time. And I'm just going to restate again, have a good discussion with your student's teacher, really understand that override, because each year when we have children override, say into a honors math class, and if it's not going well and they want to move down to CP, sometimes it doesn't happen because we build courses based on the sign-up, so there might not be a class that fits, or we might need to change around their whole schedule, or they might need to lose an elective that they really wanted. So I always really, again, it's all about balance.
Thank you. We are planning for the next 2 years electives. So electives very important. So I wonder what's the likelihood that my child's elective not getting accepted? So that kind of mess up with the whole schedule for the next 2 years.
I mean, I think, one, it changes from year to year. We have roughly about a 90% fill rate for our courses, all right? And that means that's not just, you know, AP, but that's honors, college prep level. So we really do our best. You know, sometimes, depending on what a student has taken, they may have like multiple, like what we call singletons. They might do band or chorus, and it only runs that one period, you know, and they might take, you know, an AP course that runs that one period. So once you start looking at, you know, some of the courses that they've requested, and you start putting all those pieces together, sometimes all those pieces simply don't fit together, you know, and the guidance counselor is always happy to have a conversation with your student. But I can tell you that we have just over a 90% fill rate for all students at all levels, which is important. We have to meet the needs of everybody.
That's all right. We'll let her go. She'll go.
When will the student find out about their final schedule? Is it at the beginning of the semester, like September, or at the end of this year?
No, we will release schedules like we did this past year in August to students online electronically.
Who does the recommending for the AP Econ, micro econ course, if your child wants to take that? And how would it work if they, you know, were thinking they wanted to take that as a senior, so they wanted to take some other more general electives as a junior, but maybe one of those courses isn't available, and they would choose, since the microecon is only one semester, to have the AP microecon as their backup? Is that something that's possible?
want me to?
You want me to answer
No,
that?
I'm happy
I
to.
think I know the answer. You can correct me if
Okay.
I'm wrong.
Let's go for it. We'll tag team the question.
Actually, why don't you answer?
Okay, I'll go ahead and take it. So if your student is interested in enrolling in AP Microeconomics, and this will go out in the information that's going to be sent out electronically around course selection, so everybody has it in writing, they need to reach out to Mary Beth Pappas, okay, who is the department head for the Applied Arts Department. Now, of course, there is a prerequisite for AP Economics, so if a student has been recommended for AP Economics and they do not fulfill that prerequisite, they will not be allowed to enroll. Now, again, it all depends on the number of students who request AP Economics. So some years we're able to accommodate juniors and seniors, and other years we're only able to accommodate seniors, given the number of sections that the department can run, given the number of requests that we have. So a lot of that information simply won't be available to us until we see what everybody wants to do, and then the department heads are able to look at, who they have for teaching staff and how many sections of different things they have to run. So a lot of that information is not available right now. So I mean, personally, I think from an econ standpoint, I would probably, plan for electives, junior year, and then, work the AP Econ in senior year, so then you're covered, and look for alternate electives.
What percentage of schools actually want a third year of foreign languages? I find very few or more than 2 when I look.
I don't have a percentage number. When you look at a college, you will see required minimum 2 years of same foreign language in high school. Then you look and you see recommended 3 or 4 years. So you have to look beyond that first required and look at recommended. If you are looking at higher level colleges, say like a Harvard, and
Recommended,
again,
right? Recommended.
That's
required to.
Required
but
to.
Probably the majority of their applicants are taking 3 to 4 years. So I think a good rule of thumb, I always tell my students when we're doing course selection stuff, just if things are going well in their world language class, to stay enrolled in that class minimally through junior year. So then they have 3 years in high school, and for a lot of students that'll be like Latin 3 or French 4 or Spanish 4, so they're covered because students aren't quite sure where they're going to be applying to colleges yet, So if things are going well, the colleges are most interested in those academic courses and how your student is progressing in those higher level courses. So I would encourage you to, have your student continue in world language minimally through junior year, and then they can have a discussion with their guidance counselor maybe about what senior year might look like, and because sometimes we might have students decide to, some students we have continue on with language. Other students might decide, like, I'm really focused on science, so I'm going to go ahead and double up my senior year in science and I'll forego language. And so I say, stay in it through junior year if it's going well. If it's not going well, well then, of course, have a discussion with your guidance counselor. And I think at that point, sometimes, everyone is better off, looking at alternative courses to take if things are really not going well in language.
My question is about student ranking. What I just heard is we don't have a student ranking at all. It's just we get rid of the process or just do not publish that to the student.
So we've gotten rid of the process. We do not rank and we do not disseminate rank to students, parents, or colleges. And, I think it's important to note in our research as we were looking into it, we were one of the last top-ranking high schools in Massachusetts to eliminate rank. And if you really think about some of the high-performing private schools, they don't rank their students. So we were actually finding in our research that it was hindering, some of our students in the admissions process. And we really wanted the colleges to take a more holistic read of our students. So we made the choice to, move away from rank. But I mean, there's a lot of schools, very high-performing public high schools and private high schools that we researched that are also doing that, and their students are faring just fine in the admissions process. So we really felt it was in the best interest of our students for a lot of reasons, you know, to move away from rank. Pardon me? Our current juniors is the first class that is not going to be, is not receiving a rank. Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So the question is, what about students who might want to double up in a particular content area, such as like math? So that conversation should be had with the math teacher, okay? The math teacher really is the best person to kind of make, you know, help you to make that decision about whether or not, you know, doubling up is, you know, in the best interest of your student. And they'll also be able to talk to you about, you know, if they do double up, what would the next sequence of courses look like for your student, you know? And I think it's important to understand that, like, if you're, like you mentioned, doubling up in math, I mean, our math curriculum is very strong, and obviously if your student is doubling up, it's an area of strength for them and an interest. You know, and if students get through, you know, even our pre-calc honors, I've had students go off to like the Naval Academy having pre-calc honors in their senior year. You know, our advanced placement calculus and calc honors courses, the curriculum is rigorous and it prepares the students very, very well. You know, so I think if they follow the sequence, you know, of math courses, they're going to be very, very well prepared. You know, to go to that next level. So if you want to have a conversation, you know, every student is individual, I would direct you to the teacher, but I would also remind you, you know, that sometimes there might be other elective courses that they could take as well, you know, to kind of spread things out, but, you know, getting to like an AP Calculus or Calc Honors or Pre-Calc, they're going to be very, very well prepared because our math curriculum is very strong.
And feel free to, after you look at your student's schedule, talking to it, feel free to talk to teachers, email your counselor if you have any more questions. Want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, stay dry out there. All right. Have a nice weekend, everyone.